I don't know about you, but when I think of the perfect homemade cake, I picture something moist, flavorful, and a little fancy, like this Carrot Bundt Cake with cream cheese filling and frosting. And let's not forget the adorable chocolate carrot toppers that make this cake extra special. Today, I'm going to take you step by step through the process, explaining not just what I'm doing, but why it makes a difference. Baking is all about precision, patience, and most importantly, love. So grab your mixing bowls and let's make some magic happen. Before anything else, we need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius. This is an essential step because baking is a science. If the oven isn't at the right temperature when we put the cake in, it could bake unevenly, leading to an undercooked center or overbaked edges. Give your oven a few minutes to warm up properly. I always like to have all my ingredients measured and ready before I start baking. Now, if you see me putting each ingredient into its own little bowl, like I'm hosting a cooking show, just know it's for your viewing pleasure. In real life, I wouldn't dare, unless I wanted to spend the next hour getting up close and personal with my dishwasher. Instead, I keep things simple. Gather everything in one spot, do a quick mental checklist, and avoid the dreaded, wait, did I already add the baking powder? Moment. Instead, I simply set everything out in one organized space to make sure I don't forget anything. First, I crack 3 eggs into a large glass mixing bowl. Eggs are the backbone of this cake, binding everything together while adding moisture and richness. I always crack them into a separate bowl first, because trust me, nothing ruins the baking vibe faster than fishing out a sneaky piece of eggshell. Plus, it's a great way to check that all the eggs are fresh before they go into the batter. Next, I add 1 cup plain yogurt to the eggs. Yogurt is my secret weapon for keeping the cake incredibly soft and moist. It also adds a subtle tanginess that helps balance the sweetness of the cake, giving it a more well-rounded flavor. Plus, its acidity reacts with the baking soda later, helping the cake rise to perfection. Then, I add 2 teaspoons vanilla extract. This simple ingredient enhances all the other flavors, bringing warmth and depth to the cake. It's what gives homemade baked goods that unmistakable, comforting aroma and makes every bite feel like a hug in dessert form. I take my whisk and gently mix everything together until the ingredients are fully blended. The key here is to mix just enough to combine everything without overdoing it. Overmixing can lead to a dense cake instead of a light and fluffy one. If you don't have a whisk on hand, no worries. A regular fork will do the job just fine. Just give it a little extra effort and you'll get the same smooth, well-mixed result. Here's a little secret I learned the hard way. Always grab a bowl that's bigger than you think you'll need. Trust me, nothing kills the baking mood faster than watching your flour puff into a mini kitchen snowstorm or chasing runaway batter off the counter. Give your ingredients some space to breathe. Now, it's time to bring the dry ingredients together. I grab a large mixing bowl, always bigger than I think I need because dry ingredients have a habit of puffing up at the worst moments, and start adding everything in. First, I add 2 cups of all-purpose flour. This is the backbone of the cake, giving it structure and ensuring it holds together well while remaining soft and tender. Next, I toss in 1 teaspoon baking powder and 1.5 teaspoons baking soda. These 2 are the leavening agents that make the cake rise and become light and fluffy. The baking soda reacts with the yogurt's acidity, helping to create that perfect airy texture. Then I sprinkle in 1/2 teaspoon salt. It might seem like a small addition, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. Salt enhances all the other flavors, balancing the sweetness and making the warm spices pop. Finally, I add 1/4 teaspoon each of ground ginger, cloves, and nutmeg. These spices bring that signature depth and warmth, giving the cake a cozy, spiced flavor that pairs perfectly with the sweetness of the carrots. I take my clean whisk and gently mix the dry ingredients together, making sure everything is evenly distributed. This step is crucial because it helps prevent any clumps of baking soda or spices from ending up in one spot, ensuring the flavors are balanced throughout the cake. If you want an even finer texture, you can use a large sifter instead. This helps aerate the flour, making the final cake lighter and fluffier. And if you're in a pinch, a simple fork will do the job just fine. Just be sure to mix thoroughly so everything is well incorporated. In a third bowl, I start by adding 3/4 cup melted butter. Butter is what gives the cake its rich, tender crumb and helps keep everything moist. I make sure it's melted, but not too hot to avoid affecting the texture of the batter. If you're unsure about the best way to melt butter without burning it or making a mess, I have a separate video showing exactly how to do it. Be sure to check that out. Next, I add 1 cup granulated sugar. This is what gives the cake its sweetness, while also playing a role in structure and texture. Sugar helps create a soft and airy cake by incorporating air when mixed with other ingredients. Then I mix in 1/2 cup brown sugar. Brown sugar brings a deeper caramel-like flavor and adds extra moisture, making the cake even more tender. It also enhances the overall richness of the cake, balancing out the spices beautifully. Once everything is in the bowl, I grab my jumbo blending whisk and start mixing until the butter and sugars are completely combined and smooth. The key here is to make sure there are no clumps of sugar lingering at the bottom. If you prefer, you can absolutely use a stand mixer or a hand mixer for this step. It makes the process faster and ensures everything is evenly incorporated. I use all of them depending on my mood, but today I'm keeping it simple with a whisk. And if all else fails, your trusty fork will do the trick in a pinch. Now it's time to bring everything together. I slowly pour the egg mixture into the sugar mixture, whisking continuously to ensure a smooth and even incorporation. Adding it gradually is key. Dumping it in all at once can lead to scrambled eggs, and trust me, no one wants that in their cake. This step helps create a well-balanced batter that will bake up light, fluffy, and delicious. Next, gently fold in the dry ingredients, being careful not to overmix. As you mix, you'll notice the batter getting thicker and more resistant. It's totally normal. This happens as the flour absorbs the moisture and the structure of the batter starts to form. Overmixing at this stage can make the cake dense and heavy, so stir just until you no longer see dry flour streaks. We want this bundt to stay light, tender, and perfectly moist. If your batter turns out too thick, don't worry, it's an easy fix. Simply add a tablespoon of milk, one at a time, until the consistency loosens up to a smooth and pourable texture. This prevents the cake from turning out too dense. On the other hand, if your batter is too thin and runny, gradually mix in a tablespoon of flour at a time until it thickens up. Be careful not to add too much at once, as this can make the cake dry and tough. The key is to adjust slowly and mix gently to maintain the perfect balance. Finally, fold in 3 cups grated carrots. Carrots are the heart of this cake, bringing natural sweetness and moisture, which helps keep the cake soft and flavorful. They also add a lovely speckled look to each slice, making the cake visually appealing. I'm using store-bought pre-grated carrots for convenience, because let's be honest, sometimes life is too short to wrestle with a box grater and end up with orange-stained fingers. But if you're feeling ambitious or just really enjoy the arm workout, freshly grated carrots will work just as well. In fact, they might even add a touch more moisture to the cake. Either way, the important thing is that the carrots make it in, not how they got there. Next, add 1 cup chopped pecans. Pecans contribute a delightful crunch and a nutty richness that complements the warm spices in the cake. Their slightly buttery taste adds depth to each bite, making the cake even more irresistible. Here's a little baking quirk of mine. I always chop my own nuts. I never buy pre-chopped ones because, no matter what, they're never quite the right size for what I need. Maybe it's a little obsessive, but hey, I like my nuts just right. Now, I grab my trusted silicone spatula. This thing has been with me through countless recipes, and I swear by it. If you ever come to my house or studio, you'll find an entire army of them in different colors and sizes. Some people collect mugs. I collect spatulas. With my trusty tool in hand, I gently fold the chopped nuts and carrots into the batter, making sure everything is evenly distributed without overmixing. Now, let me share the secret ingredient that takes this bundt cake from good to absolutely irresistible. Something that ensures it's creamy, rich, and incredibly moist. In a large glass mixing bowl, combine 8 ounces cream cheese, room temperature. I usually leave it out on the counter the night before so it's perfectly soft when I'm ready to use it. Softening the cream cheese beforehand ensures a lump-free, smooth filling, making it much easier to mix. Mix in 1/2 cup granulated sugar. The sugar not only adds sweetness, but also helps create a smooth, creamy consistency in the filling. Next, add 1/2 teaspoon vanilla extract. This enhances the overall flavor, giving the filling a warm and aromatic touch that pairs beautifully with the tanginess of the cream cheese. Then, pour in 2 teaspoons lemon juice. The acidity cuts through the richness, adding a bright and refreshing contrast that makes the filling taste even more balanced and delicious. Beat in 1 egg to help the filling set during baking. This keeps the filling firm and prevents it from oozing out. Use a hand mixer to beat everything together until completely smooth and creamy. Start on low speed to avoid any splattering, then gradually increase to medium until the mixture becomes velvety and lump-free. This step is crucial because a well-mixed filling ensures a smooth, rich texture inside the cake. If you don't have a hand mixer, don't worry. A sturdy whisk and a little extra arm power will get the job done. Just keep whisking until you achieve that dreamy, creamy consistency. Now that we have everything prepped and ready, it's finally time to start baking. This is the moment where all that careful measuring and mixing comes together. But pay close attention. This step can make or break your bundt cake. Trust me, I've been there. A simple mistake here could mean your cake doesn't bake evenly, or worse, refuses to come out of the pan in one piece. And yes, I have an entire video dedicated to my own bundt cake, fail to prove it. But don't worry, follow these next steps carefully and you'll be rewarded with a beautifully baked cake that slides right out of the pan like a dream. I put on disposable vinyl gloves because, trust me, things are about to get a little messy. If you don't have gloves on hand, no worries. Just grab a sandwich bag, slip it over one hand, and voila, instant kitchen mitten. It might not be the most fashionable choice, but hey, it gets the job done without turning your hands into a sticky, greasy mess. Coat every inch of your bundt pan with 1 tablespoon of vegetable shortening, ensuring you get into all the intricate edges where cakes love to stick. Taking the time to grease properly helps guarantee a smooth release. Trust me, I've had my share of cake disasters. I've tested countless bundt pans, silicone, non-stick, different shapes and sizes, but I always come back to my favorite. It bakes evenly, releases effortlessly, and creates the most stunning cake every time. If I had to choose just one, this would be it. After greasing, dust the pan with 1 tablespoon of flour, tilting and rotating to coat every ridge. Hold it over the sink and gently shake to distribute the flour evenly, then tap out the excess to prevent clumps in your cake. This extra step makes all the difference in achieving a clean, easy release. Now, take a moment to admire your perfectly prepped pan, because nothing is worse than a cake that won't budge. Give it a final tilt to ensure even flour coverage. Then get ready for the fun part, pouring in the batter. We're one step closer to a flawless bundt cake. Pour 1/3 of the batter into the bundt pan, spreading it evenly to form a sturdy base. Use a spatula to guide it into the pan's grooves, ensuring no empty spots. Lightly tap the pan on the counter to remove air bubbles for an even bake. Next, spoon in all the cream cheese filling, keeping it centered to create a distinct creamy layer. Use the back of a spoon or spatula to spread it evenly, preventing it from seeping into the edges. This step ensures every slice has the perfect balance of cake and filling. Finally, pour the remaining batter over the filling, carefully spreading it to cover the top. Smooth it out with a spatula, making sure the filling stays in the center. Give the pan a few gentle taps to release any trapped air. Now, your bundt cake is perfectly layered and ready to bake. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 50 to 65 minutes on the middle rack for even baking. Check doneness with a toothpick. It should come out clean or with a few crumbs. If there's wet batter, bake a bit longer and test again. While the cake is cooling, it's the perfect time to make the chocolate carrot toppers. These little edible decorations will add a fun and whimsical touch to our cake, making it look as good as it tastes. Plus, they're surprisingly easy to make, and the process is a lot of fun. Think of it as a little edible arts and crafts session. First, we'll melt 3/4 cup of orange candy melts in a heat-proof bowl. These candy melts are the perfect shade for our carrot shapes and have a smooth texture when melted properly. Next, we add 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil. This helps thin out the candy melts, making them easier to work with and giving them a glossy finish. Stirring the mixture continuously ensures a silky, lump-free consistency. I use a candy melting pot for this job, yet another kitchen gadget I convinced myself I absolutely needed. Do I use it often? Probably not as much as I should, but when I do, it feels like a professional chocolatier moment. It keeps the candy melts at the perfect temperature, smooth and silky, with zero risk of scorching. If you don't have a candy melting pot, don't worry. I have a separate video where I show different methods for melting chocolate, including microwave and stovetop techniques. Check that out for step-by-step guidance on getting smooth, perfectly melted chocolate every time. No matter which method you choose, keep stirring. It's the secret to melt-in-your-mouth chocolate consistency. Next, we'll prepare a piping bag by fitting it into a tall glass and rolling the edges over the rim to keep things neat. I use royal icing piping bags for this step because they are much thinner than the ones used for buttercream, allowing for better precision and control. The finer tip helps create cleaner lines and detailed designs, making it perfect for delicate chocolate decorations like these carrot toppers. Pour the melted orange candy into the piping bag, making sure to scrape down the sides of the bowl so you don't waste any. Twist the top tightly to prevent any chocolate from leaking out, then tie a secure knot, or use a bag clip to keep it closed. This helps maintain even pressure when piping, giving you better control over your designs. If needed, gently knead the bag in your hands for a few seconds to ensure the candy remains warm and smooth before you begin decorating. For the leafy green tops, we'll repeat the process with 1/4 cup of green candy melts. These give the carrots their classic, fresh from the garden look and add a fun pop of color to the decorations. Next, I add 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil. This helps keep the candy melts smooth and easy to work with, preventing them from hardening too quickly while piping. Now, to get started on shaping our chocolate carrot toppers, I need a baking sheet, a carrot template, and a parchment paper sheet. The carrot template is available for download on my website, so be sure to grab it if you want perfectly shaped decorations. Having a guide underneath the parchment paper makes piping so much easier, especially if you're aiming for consistent shapes. Just tape the template to the baking sheet, place a sheet of parchment paper on top, and you're all set to start piping. I snip off just the very tip of the piping bag. Better to start small and adjust as needed. If I realize the opening is too tiny, I can always snip a little more. But if I go too big, well, I might as well be flooding a cake instead of piping delicate decorations. And if that happens, no worries. Just transfer the melted chocolate to a new piping bag and start fresh. Chocolate work is very forgiving, and a little trial and error is all part of the fun. I start by piping the orange carrot shapes first, carefully tracing the outline and filling them in to create solid, smooth carrot bases. Once all the orange carrots are piped, I move on to the leafy green tops, using a separate piping bag filled with green melted candy. I carefully add little leafy tops at the end of each carrot, making sure they slightly overlap with the orange section so they stick together as they harden. If the candy starts to stiffen in the bag, a quick knead with warm hands will bring it back to the perfect consistency. I take my time here because these little details make the final cake look extra special. Once all the carrot tops are piped, I place the tray in the fridge for 10 minutes to firm up completely. These tiny details may seem small, but they make a big difference in the final presentation of the cake. When the chocolate has fully hardened, carefully peel the carrots away from the parchment paper. Take your time with this step, gently lifting them with a spatula, or your fingertips helps prevent any breakage. If they feel stuck, try sliding a thin knife underneath to loosen them without damaging their shape. Place them on a plate, making sure they don't overlap, so they stay intact and ready for decorating. Now, admire your little chocolate creations. They're going to make the cake look absolutely stunning. Cake rest in the pan for 10 minutes after baking to help it settle and release more easily. Then, place a cooling rack over the pan, hold both securely, and flip the cake out. If it sticks, gently tap or shake the pan. Before frosting, let the cake cool completely, about 30 minutes to an hour. Frosting too soon can cause it to melt and slide off. To speed up cooling, place the cake in a well-ventilated area or refrigerate for 15 to 20 minutes. Check for doneness by touching the top, it should feel cool, or use a thermometer. The cake is ready at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius. A fully cooled cake ensures a flawless mess-free frosting. By the time your cake is ready, your frosting should be too. Smooth, creamy, and perfect for spreading. The key? Room temperature ingredients. If you haven't already, set out the butter and cream cheese to soften. Cold ones are a nightmare to mix. Once softened, they'll blend into a silky, spreadable frosting. Grab your mixing bowl and hand mixer. It's time to whip up a creamy, tangy topping that will take your moist, spiced Carrot Bundt Cake to the next level. In a large glass mixing bowl, I place 4 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. Letting it sit out ahead of time ensures it blends smoothly without lumps, making the frosting velvety and rich. Next, I add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, also at room temperature, because soft butter helps create a light and airy texture when mixed. Then, I mix in 1 tablespoon of yogurt. This might not be a traditional ingredient, but trust me, it adds a slight tang and helps balance the sweetness of the frosting while keeping it extra creamy. Finally, I add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, because what's frosting without that hint of warm, fragrant vanilla? This little touch elevates all the other flavors and brings them together beautifully. Now, I grab my hand mixer and start blending everything together until the mixture is completely smooth and creamy. Watching the ingredients transform into a thick, luscious frosting is always my favorite part. It's the moment you know you're about to frost something truly special. I take my time adding 2 cups of powdered sugar, incorporating it half a cup at a time. This slow process is like watching a transformation happen in real time. Each addition thickens the frosting, turning it into a smooth, luxurious spread. After each scoop, I mix thoroughly, making sure the sugar is fully dissolved before adding more. If I rush, I'll end up with grainy frosting. And no one wants that. It's almost like a little workout, whipping that frosting into shape, 1 scoop at a time. If you want a softer, creamier consistency, you can stop when it reaches your desired texture. But if you want a more structured frosting, keep going until all the sugar is incorporated. I always tell myself, just 1 more mix. And before I know it, I have a dreamy, fluffy frosting, ready to coat the cake like a cozy, sweet blanket. Trust me, patience here pays off big time. Check if your cake has fully cooled. Gently touch the top with your fingertips. It should feel completely cool to the touch with no warmth remaining. You can also insert a toothpick or cake tester into the thickest part. If it comes out cool, your cake is ready for frosting. For the most accurate result, use a digital kitchen thermometer and check the internal temperature at the thickest part of the cake. It should read around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius, when fully cooled. This method eliminates any guesswork and ensures your frosting won't melt upon contact. Patience here will reward you with a perfectly frosted, visually stunning bundt cake. Use a cake lifter to carefully transfer the cake onto a serving plate. This ensures it stays intact and maintains its beautiful shape, because after all this effort, the last thing we want is a cake casualty. Now comes the fun part, spreading the cream cheese frosting. This is where the cake truly transforms into a masterpiece. Grab an offset spatula or the back of a spoon and generously coat the top, letting the frosting flow naturally over the edges like a smooth, velvety waterfall. If you're feeling extra creative, go ahead and grab a piping bag to create decorative swirls or elegant patterns. Because why not add a little flair? For the final touch, it's time to add those chocolate carrot toppers. Gently place them around the cake, giving it that whimsical, bakery-style finish. If you want to take things up a notch, sprinkle a handful of chopped pecans over the top for a bit of crunch, or lightly dust some cinnamon for an extra layer of warmth and spice. Now, the moment of truth. Slice, serve, and enjoy. But before you dive in, take a second to admire your work. Trust me, it's worth it. Each slice is a perfect balance of moist, spiced cake, luscious frosting, and that delightful snap of chocolate decoration. This is the kind of dessert that makes all the effort totally worth it. That's it. We've made a delicious carrot bundt cake with creamy filling and frosting, topped with fun chocolate carrots. If you enjoyed this recipe, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more baking tips. Let me know in the comments if you try this recipe. Need to transport or gift your bundt cake? Don't let all your hard work go to waste by having it slide around in a box or smudge that beautiful frosting. In my next video, I'll show you the best ways to package a bundt cake securely, whether you're wrapping it as a thoughtful homemade gift or making sure it arrives at your event in picture-perfect condition. From choosing the right container to simple tricks for keeping your cake intact, I've got you covered. Happy baking, and see you next time.